The invitation came 3 days before my father's birthday, short, formal, and painfully polite. Dinner at Louis 7 p.m. Don't be late. Louis wasn't just a restaurant. It was the kind of place people whispered about, the kind where success sat comfortably at every table. When I read the message, my first thought wasn't excitement. It was doubt. I stood in front of my mirror that evening, adjusting the simple navy blue dress I owned, the one that didn't scream wealth, but didn't apologize either. My reflection looked calm, but inside my chest felt tight. Family gatherings always did that to me. They were never about love, they were about comparison. When I arrived, the valet barely glanced at me before taking the keys. Inside, crystal lights reflected off marble floors, and the air smelled like money and expensive wine. My family was already seated at the long table near the window. My mother spotted me first. She paused mid-conversation, her smile fading just enough to sting. "You came," she said, as if she hadn't expected me to. "Of course," I replied. "It's Dad's birthday." Her eyes swept over me. Slow, measuring, critical. "That's nice," she said, turning back to my aunt without another word. I walked toward the table, heels clicking too loudly in the quiet elegance of the room. No one moved a chair for me. I found an empty seat at the end, beside a decorative plant, as if that's where I belonged. Dad looked up and smiled weakly. "You made it," he said, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. It never did anymore. Menus were passed around. Thick, leather, bound, intimidating. My siblings joked about prices, laughing as if numbers like those were nothing. The waiter approached me politely. "May I start you with—" "She won't be ordering much," my mother interrupted, her voice sharp and unapologetic. "This place is expensive. I told her already." The table went quiet. Heat rushed to my face. Mom laughed softly, the kind that cuts deeper than shouting. "Please, don't put yourself in an uncomfortable position. It's your father's night." A cousin avoided my eyes. Someone cleared their throat. No one defended me. I closed the menu slowly, my hands steady despite the ache spreading through my chest. I wasn't poor. I wasn't helpless. But in that moment, none of that mattered. Because at that table, I wasn't seen as capable. I was seen as embarrassing, and as my mother turned back to ordering champagne, I realized this dinner wasn't a celebration. It was a test, and they had already decided I would fail. The food arrived in waves, plates placed gently, sauces poured with ceremony, wine glasses filled without asking. Everyone admired the presentation, lifting phones for pictures, talking about flavors they pretended to recognize. I sat still, my hands folded in my lap, feeling like a guest who hadn't been meant to come. My mother leaned toward my sister, her voice low but careless. "Some people chase dreams for too long," she said. "Reality always catches up." I knew she meant me. I stared at the candle flickering between us, reminding myself to breathe. Years ago, I would have argued. I would have explained, defended, begged to be understood. But tonight, exhaustion held my tongue. Explaining myself had never changed anything. Dad tried to lighten the mood. "So, how's work?" he asked me, hopeful. Before I could answer, my brother laughed. "Still doing that startup thing." "It's not a startup anymore," I said calmly. Mom smiled thinly. "If it were successful, we'd know." The words sank deep, not because they were loud, but because they were familiar. I had heard versions of them my entire life, at graduations, weddings, even funerals. Always the same message: you chose wrong, and now we must tolerate the consequences. The waiter returned to refill glasses and hesitated near me. "Would you like anything?" I shook my head politely. "No, thank you." Mom nodded approvingly, as if I had finally behaved correctly. The table erupted in conversation again: vacations, promotions, investments. Each story landed like another reminder that I was the outlier, the disappointment, the risk taker, the child who made her mother uncomfortable at family events. I watched my father laugh at a joke my uncle made, his shoulders relaxing for the first time that night. I loved him enough not to ruin this for him. That was the cruelest part, knowing silence was expected of me and giving it anyway, but inside, memories surfaced uninvited. The night I told my parents I was leaving a safe job. The look my mother gave me, like I had announced a failure, not a decision. The way support turned into polite distance. "I just want stability for you," she had said back then. What she meant was conformity. As dessert menus were passed around, Mom glanced at me again. "You don't have to pretend," she said quietly. "We understand." I met her eyes for the first time that night. "I'm not pretending," I said. She looked away. No one noticed the shift in my posture, the calm settling in my chest. They didn't know that beneath the quiet, something unshakable had formed. I wasn't here to prove anything, but the truth was already on its way. The manager approached our table just as the dessert menus were being collected. He walked with purpose, his posture careful, his expression respectful. My mother straightened immediately, mistaking his presence for a problem. "There seems to be some confusion," she said before he could speak. "If there's an issue with the bill, I already explained that." The manager blinked, clearly startled. "No, ma'am, there is no issue." He turned toward me. For a moment I wondered if I had imagined it. The way his eyes softened, the way recognition flashed across his face. Then he smiled. "Good evening," he said, inclining his head. "We've been expecting you." The table went quiet. My brother frowned. "Expecting her?" "Yes." The manager replied, still looking at me. "MSA, the team wanted to ensure everything met your standards tonight." My mother laughed nervously. "I think you have the wrong person." "I don't," he said gently. He gestured toward the dining room. This evening's arrangements were approved personally. The private table, the wine selection, even the birthday dessert. My father's fork slipped from his hand and clinked against the plate. "I don't understand," he said. I took a slow breath and stood, the room suddenly feeling smaller. Every conversation nearby had paused. Curiosity drifted toward us like smoke. "I didn't plan to say anything tonight," I began. My voice didn't shake. This dinner was meant to be about Dad. My mother stared at me, her face pale. "Say what?" "The truth." I met the manager's eyes and he nodded. "I became a partner in Loitoil 3 years ago," I said. "Back when this was just an idea on paper and a building no one wanted to touch." Someone gasped softly. "I helped design the concept, fund the renovation, and build the team." I continued. "I stayed quiet because I didn't need approval." My brother shook his head. "That's impossible." "It's not," I replied. "You just weren't watching." The manager spoke again. "MS8 is one of our principal owners. Tonight's dinner is her gift to her father." My mother's mouth opened, then closed. Words failed her for the first time in my life. Dad stood slowly, eyes wet. "You did all this alone." I smiled, not alone, just without announcing it. The staff nearby paused what they were doing. A few smiled. One nodded with unmistakable respect. I sat back down, heart steady. No anger, no speeches, just truth, finally allowed to breathe. And in that silence, I realized something had shifted forever. They couldn't unsee me now. The room had gone silent. Even the soft hum of the air conditioning seemed to pause, as if it, too, wanted to witness this moment. My mother's eyes were wide, her lips parted, searching for words that wouldn't come. My siblings looked at me with a mix of disbelief and awkward shame. My father sat frozen, tears threatening to spill, pride and regret warring in his eyes. I smiled softly, keeping my voice calm. This dinner is for Dad, I said. Not for pride, not for punishment. It's for him. He deserves to celebrate without all the noise that usually follows us. Dad's hand trembled as he reached across the table, brushing mine. I had no idea. He whispered, "All this time," I nodded. "You didn't ask. You never asked." My mother finally found her voice, but it was fragile, almost cautious. "I underestimated you," she said. There was no anger in her tone, only the quiet shock of someone who had been wrong for too long. I tilted my head, studying her face. "You didn't underestimate me. You just didn't see me. That's different, but that's okay. I've learned that the world doesn't owe me acknowledgement. My work does." The waiter approached with a tray of desserts, personalized just as I had requested weeks ago. Dad's name was etched in gold on the chocolate plaque, a subtle touch of luxury. My father's eyes gleamed. "It's beautiful," he said, "all of it." I leaned back in my chair, finally allowing myself a moment to breathe. The room had shifted in ways no words could reverse. For years, I had carried quiet resentment, small moments of humiliation, the belittling remarks, the unspoken comparisons. But tonight, revenge was not a tantrum. It was quiet, it was control, it was truth made visible, no shouting, no dramatic confrontation, just the realization that I had succeeded in spite of them, and in full knowledge they were witnessing it. My mother looked down at her hands, her pride bruised but her lesson clear. My siblings avoided eye contact, suddenly aware that the invisible sister was not only visible but formidable. I raised my glass gently. "To Dad," I said, "to family, and to the moments we finally see each other for who we are." Dad's hands shook as he lifted his glass to meet mine. The staff smiled respectfully from a distance, aware that they had been witnesses to a rare victory, one that required no theatrics. And as the night unfolded, I realized that the sweetest revenge was not revenge at all. It was peace, it was dignity, it was being seen, not for what they wanted me to be, but for what I had quietly become. Walking out later into the cool night air, I felt lighter than ever. The weight of years of invisibility, doubt, and quiet humiliation lifted, leaving only clarity. They had learned their lesson, not with anger, but with truth. And that truth would linger far longer than any argument ever could.